Cool.
Jack 8 offsuit. Well, he's going to play.
Pass. Pass. Cool.
Cunningham going to complete from the small blinds.
Check.
Tom Dwan taps the table, and we're going to see a flop 3 ways. 10, 10, 5. Couple of hearts out there. Well, nobody has anything, so whoever bets is going to take this one down, right?
And true to form, looks like Phil's reaching for his chips.
1,000.
Just betting 1,000. Pretty simple percentage play here. 2,500 in there. He figures more often than not I'll pick this up with 1,000 bet. Of course, these players all experienced and know that that's probably what Phil's doing.
Well, Tom Dwan not going to let him do it.
700.
He's going to raise this one up. Even the small pots, they don't go uncontested.
Cool.
Well, he's floating one here, Phil.
Yes, do not adjust your dial. The cards are correct. 4 clubs. Well, gives Dwan a little bit of a draw. He has a gut shot now. Now, he did check raise on the flop. Pot is 10,600. Can he bet one more time?
This is Tom Dwan. Of course he can bet one more time.
But Ivy's range is, I mean, it's ridiculously wide, isn't it?
It is very wide, but Tom also knows that Phil's quite likely to float one in this spot as well.
$7,300.
And he bet 7,300 into a $10,600 pot. And the red chips, those are $1,000 chips. The purples are 100. And the action is on Phil Ivy.
I wonder if Phil can float another one, or if he's... No, looks like he's reaching...
21. 21.
And he's raised this up.
Well, this is what confidence can do for you. Gets off to such a strong start, Phil. He's now making great plays.
Now, just a little while ago, Mattisau said that there's no way Ivy's bluffing there. Is that why Ivy's bluffing here? To show everybody that he can bluff?
I think everyone in the world knows he can bluff, but I think he just knew his player in this spot. Beautiful play by Phil. Takes that one down without having to have the best hand.
Tom, every time you bet, they just raise you. Every time. How come?
Just read the situation perfectly and picks up a cool 10,000 that he just didn't look like was there for the taking.
I don't like the way they're treating you.
It's great play by Tom. More often than not, if you're playing against 99% of the players in the world, that kind of play will get through. But the 1%, that's Phil Ivy. He can read it and he can make the replay. Fantastic stuff.
20 hours straight, 21 hours straight. Feldman not going to play. Ferguson not going to play. Cunningham, ace-queen offsuit.
I bet he's going to play.
2,000 to play.
That's why you're good. Nothing gets by you, Gary.
Pass.
Tom Dwan not going to play, though. And Mattisau, the king-queen. Now, under normal circumstances, I like king-queen off. But would you be calling a raise from Alan Cunningham, especially an early position
4
raise?
players.
Perhaps not. But he has got the button, he has got position. The 2 blinds, of course, who probably feels like he's got quite a lot of value. And as it happens, he hasn't got a bad flop for his king-queen. But it's a better flop for Patrick Antonius.
Yeah, Patrick Antonius with top pair. Cunningham's...
I think he's got too many. He has got a double straight draw here as well. He can catch a 9 to make a straight that he won't want to hit when he's up against Mike Mattisau's hand. And he can also catch a king, which he would like to hit.
Cool.
There's only 1 king left in the deck, though. We can see 3 of these players have kings.
Phil Ivy out the way. He doesn't have much to carry on with this. A real dangerous looking board. Patrick with the best hand right now, he makes the call.
Yeah, Patrick going to play a little small ball there. He's not going to build this pot up even with top pair.
7.
Well, that's a dangerous card for all 3 hands.
Yeah, there's a one-liner to a straight now. If anybody had a 9 in their hand, they would have made the straight.
Check. Check.
And it checks around. Here's the river.
9.
River is the 9. And wow, it's an action card there. There's a straight on the board. But Mike Mattisau with the absolute nuts. Alan Cunningham with the queen high straight. And Patrick Antonius' hand is absolute garbage right now. He can only play the board.
I think he knows it is as well. But it's not going to stop him firing. Whatever he bets is pretty well what Alan Cunningham's going to lose in this pot.
10,000.
I think Alan's going to call it.
13.
And Mattisau's got to be just absolutely jumping in his seat.
It's a perfect spot for him as well to have Patrick leading and Alan just going to have to make the call.
Cool.
Patrick does lead for 13,000. Alan calls. Well, it's an easy raise from Mattisau. Obviously, he's got the absolute nuts. The only question is, how much does he raise?
The black chips.
Raise. Pass. 32 total.
Well, the bet's 32,000. Patrick Antonius knows he picked the wrong spot. He's out the way. Now it's up to whether Alan wants to call the other 19,000. Does he think that Mike's going to do this with just a queen?
Cunningham, one of the best players I've ever seen. And we've been doing this for 4 seasons. Cunningham's been here for 4 seasons. I have not seen a better player. Just uncanny the way he knows when he's beat.
And the thing about that we've seen from Alan is not that he's got the maximum when he's got a big hand. It's the fact that he's got away from so many hands and lost the minimum. Absolutely fantastic. It's not always about how much you can win. It's quite often about how little you end up losing with big hands. And that's exactly what he's a master of.
Mike Mattisau wins a big pot there. And he has Patrick Antonius to thank for making that 13,000 bet on the river.
Anytime I win a pot, I'm happy.
Alan Cunningham down just under $27,000, but I would not bet against him turning this one around.
No, not at all. I certainly wouldn't rule out Tom Dwan still being the big winner here, and he's down about 27,000 as well. Anything can happen with Tom in the house.
Well, hello there. Phil Ivey picks up ace queen.
And he's mixing it up. Just a black call. Raise from Tom, call from Mike.
Last year, that was something special, boy. No, you won the biggest. You won 500.
Last year was. It was
And Mike, by the way, also mixing it up a little. He wasn't playing aggressive before, but now that he's up 30,000, he's called a raise with Jack 10 suited.
Well, that's a bit of a flop.
Oh, we're going to see fireworks here. Queen, Jack, 8 of diamonds, 3 diamonds out there. Tom Dwan has flopped the flush, but Ivy's got the ace of diamonds.
And he's got the top pair. And of course, it's poor Mike Mattisau with the third best hand right now and drawing pretty well dead.
Kind of tight value better than River. Kind of tight betting with him.
Mike Mattisau bets 4,200.
Well, you know,
Phil Ivey just calls. Action on Tom Dwan.
Going to be curious to see whether he just wants to
If you raise a turn, though, you could have probably won the same.
just a call, or maybe the re-raise.
No, if you're in Tom Dwan's, spot, do you wait to the turn to make the big move? Tom Dwan is only $73,000 deep. I say only, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to see all of it go in eventually.
maybe a break and maybe a double up. Covers the turn.
I think if you raise the turn, because how does the king?
I think you've hit the nail on the head, really, David. I think the fact that he's only got 73,000 there, he's going to give himself an opportunity to put the chips in the middle.
Well, he's putting a lot of chips in the middle right now. Those red chips are $1,000 chips.
What do you have left?
King,
Started with about 70.
And it looks like a raise up to about 19,000, I'm guessing. Obviously, Mattisau gets out of the way. He had really nothing there, just a second pair.
Well, Phil puts the big re-raise in with the black chips, not messing around.
You said you had like 70, right?
All the way?
About, I suppose.
Ivy,
They're just checking. I think he's moved him all in.
yeah, Ivy has essentially moved Tom Dwan all in. Tom Dwan is called.
Phil needs to catch. Doesn't hit the turn. Doesn't hit the river. And Tom Dwan's going to double up against Phil.
Phil Ivey makes the move on the flop. Tom Dwan quickly calls. A blank on the turn, a blank on the river.
Mikey, you bet the flop?
I made a pretty good fold.
Phil knew even if he's up against it here, he's more than likely going to have some sort of outs by catching a diamond, as long as he's not up against 9-10 of diamonds, of course. And with Tom Dwan being Tom Dwan, he doesn't actually have to have much of a hand in this spot.
Very, very difficult for Phil Ivey to get away from that one, especially against that particular opponent.
Well, that's the reason Tom plays the way he does. When he gets a hand, he gets paid.
Tom Dwan, by the way, now up to $155,000. And just like that, Superman is human. As I said, Tom Dwan up $55,100. And now that he has chips, he's going to be even more dangerous. Phil Ivey, still our big winner, up $66,000. And our big losers, Patrick Antonius and Andrew Feldman. Feldman down nearly $100,000. FullTiltPoker.net $1 million cash game. 7 of the best at this table.
Well, 6 right now. Tom Dwan having a short break. Mike Madison takes the big blind instead.
Phil Ivey with the ace-jack offsuit in first position.
Pass, pass.
He's going to play.
Pass.
Ooh, wow, and there it is. Alan Cunningham with the big pocket kings.
Raise.
It's 2,000 from Phil in first position. Looks like
it's about 7,000 back from Cunningham.
7,300.
How much did you start this hand with, Alan?
70 something, 75.
Cool.
Well, he makes the call. I think you were about to say if there's a play you're going to lay down ace-jack to for a single re-raise, it's definitely going to be Alan Cunningham.
No, I was actually going to ask you, here's the flop. 7-6-3. Well, it's a pretty good flop for 2 kings.
6-7.
But against a player like Ivey, you never know where he's at. Is there a player at this table that Ivey respects more than Alan Cunningham?
Probably not. Maybe Patrick Antonius. He's also played an awful lot with Tom Dwan, don't forget, as well. Tom's a very tricky player to play against. Here comes the bet from Alan. Definitely respecting you expect him to have the hand, definitely.
$10,000 bet on that flop. The flop has completely missed Phil Ivey.
Don't know if he's likely to float one against Alan. Oh, it looks like he's lining up 27,000 there. Is he going to put a pressure re-raise back on Alan?
Cunningham only with 72,000. I don't think he gets away from this hand.
Well, we have seen it once before, these two players in a previous hand in the $1 million cash game.
Pass.
Where Phil just kept on firing, and eventually Cunningham got away from pocket aces when he was up against a set. Phil not going to try it this time without the hand, and Alan takes that pot down.
Experienced players are capable of making those laydowns. They've been in this situation before. You just have to let it go sometimes.
In reading other players, you have to realize what they think of your game and how they think you play, and from there you can sort of deduce their hands. I had a pretty big hand, especially against a player as aggressive as Phil Ivey. I had 2 aces, and Mike Madison had limped under the gun, and I raised him, which normally means you have a pretty strong hand to raise it under the gun limper. Phil Ivey calls in the big blind, and Mike Madison also calls. Phil Ivey bets all 3 streets. So I feel like after calling him twice, he could be almost certain that I had an overpair. And now on the river, he bet a modest amount.
35.
That's exactly what I thought you were supposed to bet. But it really looked like a bet size I would call him again with an overpair. So because it looked like I had an overpair and looked like I would call him, I had to disappoint him by throwing it away.
He's laid it down.
Yeah, he made a good laydown for sure. I mean, sometimes, you know, people make good laydowns against you. Sometimes they make bad laydowns. He happened to make a good one this time.
And now they're talking about straddling, just to refresh our viewers on what straddling it is. It's pretty much an extra blind, but it's a live bet. And you are putting in double the big blinds, but you get to act last, pre-flop. I'm not sure if it's a positive EV play, an expected value type play, but...
Sometimes it's the kind of play that really gets the action going. Someone who's stuck will quite often do it just to make the game a little bit bigger.
2,000 to play.
But when you've got some of these players in the pot, you don't need the action to be too much bigger. The money's going to go in there anyway. 2 fours from Phil Ivey. And here's a king-jack.
Cool.
And Ferguson doesn't play too many hands. He's going to play this one, though. He's out of position against Ivey with the king-jack.
Well, it's a pretty good flop for king-jack.
Yeah, you're talking about a completely dry board. Jack, 7, deuce, rainbow.
3,000.
Small continuation, but probably thinking he's protecting his hand here. He'll find out whether he's in front or not. Doesn't need to risk any more than the 3,000. Now it's just a question of whether Chris calls or if he re-raises.
It's an interesting spot to be in, because if you're Chris Ferguson, all you really have right now is reverse implied odds. Because I don't think Phil Ivey's going to put another chip in the pot once he gets called or raised. But if a 4 comes off, you could lose a lot of chips.
That's true, but if he puts the re-raise in to protect his hand, the only way more chips now go in the pot is if he's behind. So, well, he's decided to make the re-raise, just protect his hand, maybe find out where he is. Nothing wrong with either play. Both have their strategies. It's a small re-raise. Now he's just made it bigger. And he's out of position. So Phil kind of half floating one, half thinks maybe there's a chance he's in front. Either way, he's got position, and that deuce doesn't change much of the board. Now if you're Chris, what do you do?
Can he actually think he's ahead? I mean, I have to think that Ivey's floating there thinking he's behind. I mean, on a board of Jack, 7, deuce, rainbow, when you are check raised by Chris Ferguson?
Exactly. If you're up against Chris, yes, I think that's totally true. But Chris giving him a chance to make another bet.
One thing we've seen from Phil Ivey, he is not letting any pot go uncontested. Fighting for every chip.
16.
16,000.
And he bet 16,000.
Now it's a question of how much does Chris like his hand?
Well, inherently, this is the problem with playing a hand like king-jack offsuit out of position against somebody of Phil Ivey's caliber. Pot is 36,700, and it's 16,000. Back to Ferguson.
Well, he's made the call.
And this is exactly the way that Ferguson made a lot of money last year in the $1 Million Cash Game. He let his opponents bluff at him.
He also lost a big pot when he went behind. Not getting away from, was it the aces?
Exactly.
Ace.
Well, that's a scary card for the king-jack. Of course, he's either up against a bluff or he's not. It's going to be interesting to see whether Phil makes another big bet.
Now Ferguson checks. Action over to Ivey.
If Phil bets, Chris knows he's only beating a bluff.
Does Ivey have one more bullet in his gun?
I think Ivey's always got more bullets in his gun. It's a question of whether he's got the finger on the trigger or not.
Now, the one thing that's so dangerous about Ivey is Ferguson knows he will value bet pretty light.
To some extent, this is almost a good card for Chris.
Check.
Check.
The only hand he was really in trouble against was ace-jack. Queens or kings might shut down or make a smaller value bet.
Check deuce.
Well, he's checked it. And Chris ends up winning that pot. I think it would have been very interesting to see what would have happened if he had made a 50,000 value bet in that spot, or thinks that looks like a value bet. But we'll never find out. Would Chris have made the call? Very interesting pot, though, David.
Yeah, well, the ace of spades on the river changes some things. I mean, I think Ivy, he's betting ace-jack there if he made top 2. But if he had ace-jack, he was ahead the whole time anyway.
Exactly.
He's obviously betting aces full if he had a pair of aces in the hole.
But does he bet the queens or queens?
Kings or queens, he might shut down. You can see the 1200 in front of Mattisau. The red chip is 1,000. The purple, 200. The blue chips, by the way, are $500 chips. And if you see those black chips, I believe those are 25,000.
I think you're right. What that live straddle actually means is Mike's going to be the last person to act, and if anyone else wants to enter this particular hand, it's going to cost them at least 1,200. What it also does, it puts a lot more money out there for people to go and fight for, and that's brought Phil in with a pretty marginal 4-deuce offsuit in first position. And we definitely wouldn't have seen such a large pot or a large bet from him if the live straddle wasn't out there.
And Mattisau going to call out of position, heads up against Ivy with a hand like 5-4.
Well, just doesn't want to leave that 1,200 behind. He's caught a little bit of it. It's not an ideal flop for him, but you might see a turn, especially if it's cheap enough.
6,000.
Now, I just remember from last year, Ivy seems to have Mattisau's number.
Cool.
And I think Ivy's inside his head. I mean, to me, Ivy can win this pot. He can finagle to win this one.
Deuce. Check.
Well, both players have a little bit now. Mattisau with a pair of 5s, Ivy with a pair of deuces.
Both of them with a 3 for a straight.
20.
And there you go. I think against other players, we saw earlier on, Phil Ivey only fired 1 bullet against Tom Dwan. Didn't think he can get Dwan to fold. But against Mattisau, he knows he can get Mattisau to fold. Kind of a marginal hand there.
Real.
Let's try.
Remember the Joe Buttons.
And we've got another straddle here. Patrick Antonius has decided to straddle. Now, what's the reason for straddling, though?
Well, for a lot of the players, it's to make the action a little bit bigger, give them a chance to win a bigger pot. Also means they get to act last before the flop. And quite often people make marginal raises because they feel like that 1,200 is going to be dead money, so they may put in a 4,000 bet just to try and pick it up. But people like Patrick Antonius are world renowned for blind defending. If you want to try and steal blinds, attacking Phil Ivey and Patrick Antonius is possibly not the most sensible thing in the world. But if anyone's going to have a go at it, it's Tom Dwan.
Well, Tom Dwan has given it a go. He's raised it up to 4,000.
And it's about 100 to 1 on that Patrick Antonius is going to defend it with his King 10.
Well, could he re-raise here?
Well, he could well do, because he knows there's an awful lot of a monster range for Tom Dwan to be raising on that button into his blind.
Oh, we're going to see a flop. He does defend. Oh, there's a 10. How about 2 10s and a 4? Wow, this could get interesting.
Check. Check.
He hasn't fired on the flop. Has he smelt something?
Queen.
Oh, Queen of Diamonds on the turn. Tom Dwan cannot win this hand unless he gets Patrick Antonius to fold.
Check.
Good luck on trying that one.
Check.
Check, check. Well, you would have expected a continuation bet from Tom Dwan. He hasn't. We may see a bet and a call here, assuming the bet comes from Patrick. Check. Well, he makes another check. Is Tom going to manage to check once more? It so doesn't look like Patrick has any of this.
3,000.
It's a small valuation bet from Tom. It definitely is. He's only betting 3,000 into 10.
Well, it's definitely a value bet, but at this point, if you're Antonius, can you raise? Remember, Tom Dwan has checked both times. I mean, is it possible he backed into Jack 9? Something like that.
15,000.
He very rarely seems to play what ifs. He's more likely to re-raise, and I think that's what he's done.
Well, Patrick has re-raised.
And that was the problem with such a small value bet from Tom. He's opened the betting up again.
Pass.
It's up to 15,000. Well, he gets away from the hand. He doesn't make the 12,000 crying call. So Patrick did his absolute best to try and get something out of Tom. He only managed to get 3,000. Possibly a value bet of 7,000 into Tom on the end would have been a better play.
Andrew Feldman. He's down a cool $106,000.
I don't think it's that cool.
That's cool for me. It's not my 106,000.
Certainly cool to watch.
Oh, he's got to take a peek at his cards and see what he has. Now we've been watching everybody else straddle. Andrew Feldman, though, not looking to gamble as much now that he's down 106,000. He does not straddle, but he does raise it up with the ace-3.
Pass. 1,800.
And by the way, that's the smallest pre-flop raise we've seen. Most players are raising up to 2,100, 2,400. He makes it 1,800, 3 times the big blind.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing, wow, we've got a nice hand here from Patrick.
Patrick, come get some food. 12 more, right?
Cool.
You have to be awkward. It's too small.
It's up.
Can't
Go for that.
Make it 3,000.
Check.
Check. 10, king 7.
Well, it's only one overcard to Antonius's jacks. Pot is now 5,300. There's a continuation bet from Feldman. You knew that was coming. And there's no way Antonius is going anywhere, right?
No, not for this bet, for certain. Andrew has played very tight,
Cool.
and this is his first position raise.
Jack.
Check.
Turn is the jack. Wow, look at that.
Okay.
The river's the
9.
9 of diamonds.
Pretty scary card.
Oh, it's a very scary card there. Anybody with a queen would have a straight.
Or an 8.
Thank you.
Check.
Check.
I think that's why Patrick's decided to check it.
Well, with a set of jacks there, all he has is a bluff catcher, right?
Exactly. And Andrew's got to realise the only thing he can beat here, the only way he can probably win here is with a bet. Any hand that's been called on the flop will have hit. That's what's going through his mind. Of course, the other thing is, the only thing he can do here to lose more money is to make the bet.
Well, he's stacking out chips, and he's putting out about 8,000.
8,000, sorry. 8.
And he bets 8,000. Can he get Antonius off of his set of jacks?
I don't think so.
No, he's not. Antonius is going to call this.
Okay. One more, I think. Thank you.
Nice hand.
Nice hand.
And Andrew Feldman, another big hit to his stack, and his confidence dwindling.
Yeah, it's nothing going his way so far today, Andrew. And the master of mixing it up, Tom Dwan, in there. And Tom opening well. Mike mixing it up with just flat call with the aces. That could bring in the whole table behind him. He's got both Phil Ivey and Patrick Antonius who like to mix it up. Phil already in there as well. Well, we've got aces and aces here. That doesn't happen too often, does it, David?
No, not very often at all. I mean, Tom Dwan in there with the queen 7, Phil Ivey with the queen 6, but those are kind of relevant. You kind of see the black aces of Mattisau and the red aces of Andrew Feldman.
Raise.
And the way Andrew
9,100
Feldman's day is going, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw 4 spades out there.
Pass.
And the one thing about this raise, it almost looks like a squeeze play.
Exactly. With 3 people in there, everyone knows that Tom Dwan could have any kind of half hand. Phil's quite likely to be calling him with any kind of half hand.
And
it looks like it could be even just a call from Mike. And that's why Tom's calling. It's a good size, actually, as it happens, the re-raise from Andrew.
Now the action's on Mike Matusow. The mouth, trying to decide what to do. Pretty sure a re-raise is going to come in, though.
He doesn't want to play this hand like four-handed. If he calls, he's probably going to bring in Phil Ivey.
Raise.
And he is going to re-raise, and I see a black chip in there, which is at least 25,000.
Yeah, it's looking about 35, 40,000. It looks like a dream spot for Andrew Feldman.
37,100.
And some of the suspense taken out of this one, but still, anything can happen.
Yeah, I'm sure we've both been in pots where 4 of a suits come down. It's a harsh way to lose as well when you've got aces.
Now, if you're Feldman, would you ever just smooth call here, knowing that Matusow's kind of committed to this pot, putting him on kings or queens and going, okay.
I'm all in.
Quite possibly,
All
but
in.
the only thing that would worry me about that is having Tom Dwan behind me.
I call.
So I don't blame him. He might not want Tom in there as well.
Both players so excited when he saw all in and call, and both players kind of deflated when they see the other player has aces. And you've got the black aces against the red aces.
You guys were happy for a second.
Second time this week.
Yeah, or black. That's not a good word.
Well, that's a diamond. Diamond. Well, Mike Matusow can't win the pot anymore. He can only split it. He's hoping the turn card's not a diamond. Oh!
One more. Diamond.
Oh, here it is. $175,000 to the river.
Oh!
See, the old Mike is negative. The new Mike knew it wouldn't be there.
That's deep.
That is. It's true.
How do y'all get those hands? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. It's the first hand I've had today. What's really great about it is I thought I set the trap. When he re-raised and you called, I said, beautiful. And then he has to have aces too. Kings. I kind of figured you had.
What a dream situation. You pick up aces and you get action, and unfortunately your opponent has aces also. Oh, Matusow picks up another big hand. He's got the pocket jacks. 2 black jacks here. He's in first position. He's going to raise it up again.
2,500 to play.
2,500. It's quite a big raise.
It is a big raise. Possibly he doesn't want to be seeing a flop with too many players behind him. Here comes one.
Oh.
At least he hasn't got any overcards to the jacks. It's Jack 10 of diamonds for Patrick. Certainly doesn't want to catch top 2.
Pass.
Tell you, if Matusow had lost with the aces there, we would have never heard the end of it. Oh.
Cool.
Oh, and Cunningham kind of opening up his game.
Well, it's going to be at least 3-handed, and he expects probably 4 with Tom Dwan.
Yeah, Tom Dwan's got the old Dolly Parton 9-5.
I think he's thinking about a squeeze here.
Cool.
Well, he might have thought about it, but he doesn't do it.
Guarantee you he thought about it.
12 bills.
Pot is just over $10,000, and here's the flop. 3 ways. King, 7 deuce. And
Rainbow, awful lot of draws out there, as in none.
And amazingly, you know, Matusow's jacks are still good.
And no one else has even caught a pair.
Check.
And it checks around. Here's a turn.
10.
Turns a 10.
That's a good card for Mike. Gives second best pair for Patrick Antonius, and with a check around,
Check.
he may figure he's still in front.
Right, well, Cunningham's got 3rd pair. Matusow's got 2nd pair to the board. And Patrick Antonius 2nd pair on the board.
And Tom Dwan there with 2 hearts in his hand, he's picked up a flush draw. And here he goes betting it.
It's like a family meal. A little something for everybody.
Exactly. And with no one with the king, the action's going to be a bit slow. It's not going to be too expensive to see the river.
To play.
And I think Matusow's a little bit uncomfortable in situations like this.
Yeah, I think so too.
Cool.
He makes the call.
Pass.
Well, that's going to get Patrick out of the way.
Pass.
Patrick knows that Mattisau's a pretty tight player. And we're heads
He's
up
done
here.
well to get out of there in that spot. That 3 changes nothing. Tom, only way he can win this is possibly with a big, big bet.
I don't think Mattisau's folding no matter what. I got to tell you. Well, there's only one overpair, only one overcard to my pair of jacks. The 3 of diamonds completes nothing at all. And you've got to start thinking of hands that Dwan could have bet. He could have picked up hearts. He could have 8-9. He could have had Queen Jack. I mean, there are a lot of cards he could have theoretically picked up.
But there reaches a point when you can only beat a bluff, and do you think the man's bluffing? That's all it's going to boil down to if he does fire a 25,000 or something into this pot.
No, that's what makes poker
Would
so
he bet
great.
a 10, for instance, you know? We know Tom Dwan had bet an awful lot less than a 10. But only as a bluff.
I mean, if Cunningham or Ferguson are betting in this case, I might lay down jacks down. There's no way I'm laying jacks down in this case, and I think Dwan knows that. This is why he checked. Mattisau is going to check it behind.
Tom looks to the heavens, possibly thinking, I might have been able to get a bluff through. I think David's probably right. I think you probably did well to check that one, Tom. I think Mike would have called him down.
Jacks aren't really good when 6 people call your raise.
Today's your day, Mike. Let's all to it.
Yeah. This ain't my day. We got like 20 hours left.
How are you gonna make it 20 hours? If you get ahead,
I ain't leaving. I'm gonna tell you right now.
gonna play
You
the
heard
whole
it from
time?
me. I ain't leaving.
really?
Yeah. And you want to bet on that? We can bet like 20,000.
Okay, so if you ever leave, if you ever quit,
I'll tell you what. If I quit before the game ends, if I don't quit, you owe me 20,000. If I do, I owe you 20,000.
It's a fair bet.
is it?
Yeah, it's good odds. Go on, Phil.
And big line, please.
That's what I'm here to do. Crush you guys. Not so much you.
Thank you.
I can't have. I don't want to hurt any part of you. You got 100,000 to win from me. So I want to keep you. You know.
You gonna be there?
Hell yeah, I'm gonna be there.
You gonna sweat me in?
I'm gonna be there every minute.
2,700.
Not only am I gonna be there.
Raise
every
here
minute,
from
Will you wear
Patrick Antonius
I am gonna.
after a limp from Phil Ivey.
Well, that's the reason why he's raised it up. King 10.
Palm fast.
Doesn't need much of a reason, that much is certain.
No. I mean, when you
Mike Mattisau not going to defend with his 6-4.
has that ever happened?
Phil limped with the ace-4 to call a raise.
Well, you know once he limps there's no way he's going to fold, especially not to Patrick Antonius' raise.
Heads up.
Here's the flop. 10-5 deuce. And Patrick Antonius a top pair. Phil Ivey now with the gut shot wheel draw. Needs a 3 to make that wheel.
Can also catch the ace, as we know.
7 outs.
You're not planning on doing the whole
5,100.
win bonus. Me, him, and Bobby. And Bobby call.
Quick tip for the audience, if you work out that you've got 7 cards to improve, a quick way to work out what percentage you've got is just to multiply those outs by
7.
4. That's why he's got 28%.
Check.
Only works on the flop, of course. That percentage goes down when the turn card comes.
7 of diamonds, not a help. And Phil Ivey still with the same 7 outs. Needs a 3 or an ace on the river. Or somehow he needs to get Antonius to fold.
Which right now is going to be a bit tricky. About 13,000. Actually, no, Patrick tends to bet a little bit more. Probably more like 15,000 from Patrick.
Talking about the most penetrating eyes in poker. Patrick Antonius, Phil Ivey, 2 players I certainly don't want to be playing against.
Well, you went with my first guess.
13,000. Pot is now nearly 31,000. 13,000 over to Ivy.
Well, he's reaching for the chips. He's not going anywhere by the looks of things. Well, looks like he's got something more creative lined up. That looks like 33,000 to me.
33,000 total.
Well, what is Ivy trying to represent here? Is he trying to represent a small set?
Small set. Maybe 7s and 5s.
And we've seen Ivy in there with 10-7.
Yeah, we have. I guess they don't have to be too close to be connected in Phil's hand.
Your style's good for a cash game. Yeah, I'm
And
surprised you
you
don't
get
play.
nothing from Ivy's face. Absolutely unreadable. Now, this is the dangerous spot for Patrick Antonius. If he calls the 20,000 on the turn, he
Puts-
might be faced with a big bet on the river.
Exactly, makes an 83,000 pot. Phew.
And he's going to call this.
Well, he teased us by picking up 125,000. Just made the call.
Pot is now $84,000.
6.
Well, the 6 diamonds doesn't seem to complete anything. Well, I mean, I guess you could say it completed the 3-4, or maybe, just throw this at you, if Ivy had picked up a diamond draw on the turn.
Yeah, he
something
could have
like
had
Jack 10 of diamonds.
Exactly. Phil obviously knows now he has to bet to win this pot. It's a pretty scary card for him. He knows that Patrick could have been found with anything on the flop, and then maybe he's fired again with a flush draw. But he does know.
Pot is $83,900. The red chips are 1,000. The purple are 100. The blues are 500. And Phil Ivy's got some black ones behind there, and those are $25,000.
All in.
And Phil Ivy's all in. We haven't seen Phil Ivy make this kind of bluff. Unbelievable.
It's a tough call with just a 10 and a king kicker.
It's $101,000 to call. He overbets the pot. It's exactly the way Phil Ivy would play this if he had a set. Or if he made 2 pair, something like that. Oh, it's an awfully tough call. Patrick Antonius trying to play this hand back in his head, figure it out. Is my top pair good?
Well, he knows right now the only thing he's beating is a bluff.
Oh, obviously. And if I'm in Patrick's spot, all I can keep thinking about is Ivy maybe check raise me with a diamond draw, and he's picked it up on the river.
These two players have played against each other an awful lot online, and a fair bit live as well.
The way this hand played out, I mean, it's almost as if Ivy thinks his ace of hearts is the ace of diamonds.
Pass.
Well, he lays it down. It's a great play by Phil. $100,000 on a stone cold bluff.